For some reason, I'm really struggling to get this video started. So, top 50 albums of this year, 2020, the bad year. I've listened to 108 albums this year. This is the top 50 of those ranked. Obviously, I have to do this or I don't have any credibility. So, let's do this. Obviously, since 50 albums is quite a lot, I'll get through it pretty quickly. So, starting off at number 50, I've got the Dream Wife album, So When You Gonna, and at number 49, we've got Perfume Genius with Set My Heart on Fire Immediately. Number 48 is the late Mac Miller's Circles, and number 47, J Hus with Big Conspiracy. Number 46, I've got Jessie Ware with What's Your Pleasure, and for the number 45 spot, Against All Logic with 2017 to 2019. For number 44, I've got the Microphones album, Microphones in 2020. And for number 43, the Chloe and Halle album, Ungodly Hour. Before the top 40, ranked 42nd, I've got the self-titled Leanne LeHavas album, I hope I said her name correctly. And number 41, the Tame Impala album, The Slow Rush. Starting the top 40, an OG old school rapper, Nas with King's Disease. Ranked 39th, I have the Gorillaz album, Song Machine, Season 1, Strange Times, Deluxe. At 38, the long-awaited Savage Mode 2 from Metro Boomin and 21 Savage. And at number 37, I've got Positions by Ariana Grande. Number 36, I've got a very sexually confident album from Megan Thee Stallion, Good News. And ranked at 35, the Car Seat Headrest album, Making a Door Less Open. Number 34, I've got The Strokes with The New Abnormal. Really surprised by how much I ended up liking this album. More so am I surprised about number 33, Ulcerate with Stare Into Death and Be Still. I don't usually like black metal that much, so the fact that I even like this album is a pretty big surprise, and I ended up liking it quite a bit. At 32nd, I've got Rap Ferreira with Purple Moonlight Pages. Some really good jazz rap, some awesome instrumentation, and just great flows across this thing. 31st, I've got a Finnish album from the band Maustetytöt, Eivät enkelitkään ilman siipiä lennä. And kicking off the top 30 is Freddie Gibbs and The Alchemist on Alfredo. Probably my second favorite out of the whole Freddie Gibbs discography. For 29, I've got Fiona Apple with Fetch the Bolt Cutters. A very, very talked about album this year for strange reasons. After that, for number 28, I've put The Novembers with At the Beginning. Some really good instrumentation. I don't understand a word of what they say because I don't speak Japanese, but I love the sound of this thing. Speaking of sounds that I love, number 27, I've got 100 gecs with 1000 gecs and a tree of clues. The amount of times this album just makes me smile, it certainly warrants this top 30 ranking. Number 26, I've got Slotface with The Slumber Tapes, a Norwegian band that I absolutely fell in love with this year. They redid a lot of their old songs on this sort of collection, sort of remaster type thing, and a lot of the versions are really, really good. For the 25th place, I have another posthumous release, the Pop Smoke album, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon. Just crazy to think where this guy could have gone. And at 24, I had a sonically ugly album in my own opinion, but for some reason I quite like it. It's This Does Not Exist by Lil Darky, the first album that I heard this year, and didn't get topped by that many, just about 20. For 23, I've got the self-titled Food House Project from Goopy and Fraxion. A lot of fun tracks on this thing, some absolute bangers, and Neon Cat samples, Crazy Frog samples, you got it all. On the 22nd spot, I've got Fleet Foxes with Shore. I love how this album just sort of, the album cover art here really represents the way it sounds. It's this wide range of calm, soothing, grand, sort of shore-like music. And just missing out on a top 20 ranking is something that I didn't really expect to find, but something that I really vibe with, something that sounds really nice. And that is All the Colors by Colors in the Street. Time for the top 20. What is going to start the top 20? It is Halsey with Manic. A January release, if I'm not completely mistaken. something that I originally just kind of liked, but I think there's barely any duds in the track list. There's good features, there's really good songs, and yeah, I like this album. Taking things forward, on the 19th spot, I've got A$AP Rock with Spirit World Field Guide, one of my favorite concept albums of this year. And 18th, I've got Rina Sawayama with Sawayama. Number 17 is a very liked album, very critically acclaimed album, Punisher by Phoebe Bridgers. Really just, I appreciate the storytelling, I appreciate the sort of, how it's at the same time, it's like hopeful and dark and just playful. It's a great album. For number 16, I gotta give it up for Amaranth for their album Manifest. Really great, just melodic metalcore. I love the vocals across this thing, the way it's mixing screamo and then just like gentle vocals. I love the melodies, I just love this album. For 15th place, I've ranked the Ichiko Aoba album, Windswept Aiden. This album sounds so amazing. It's one of the most sonically pleasing experiences that I had all year. It is so calm, so soft, yet it's not boring, it's not backgroundy, it doesn't feel like it's missing anything. It's just overall a really good sounding, calm album. I originally almost decided against doing this, but for 14th place I've got Slotface with their album Sorry for the Late Reply. Obviously I'm talking about the fact that I just mentioned their other album, The Slumber Tapes, which is more of a collection sort of anyway, but I figured that I'm not gonna like make a rule of one album per artist. I'm just gonna put the albums that I like, and here it is. I really like this album. I don't think it quite lives up to their debut, but nevertheless, I recommend giving this a listen. For number 13, I've got Rav, Kill Bill a Rapper, and Square with their combined efforts on the album Skin. It's a very brief, very fun, very playful set of tracks, and I think this one's just like hard to not like. For number 12, before the top 10, I've got Kid Cudi with Man on the Moon 3. I think a great addition to the first two Man on the Moon albums, despite being a whole 10 years later. It's great to see that he's sticking the landing here with some really good tracks, some amazing production here and there, and just genuinely a very enjoyable experience. And for number 11, I've got the Dua Lipa album, Future Nostalgia. This thing is full of banger bass lines, banger vocals, and banger songs. And this is it. This is the top 10. This is what I did last year, and I expanded. I multiplied by 5, but we're here. We're in the top 10 of 2020. And starting the top 10 is the Logic album, No Pressure. He's now retired, according to his own words, and if that is true, he retired with his best album to date. Some really great songs, really great flows, funny punchlines, and I think that this is the album that we needed from Logic before he went to enjoy his fatherhood. I like this album. It definitely deserves a spot in the top 10. And an album that I pretty much expected to really dislike based on their earlier album from last year. For 9th place, I've got Clipping with Visions of Bodies Being Burned. So yeah, I did not like There Exists an Addiction to Blood last year, and I did not expect to like this album, but my god, it's really good. It just grabs you, and you're now on this journey through this album, this creepy, this eerie, and just well put together horrorcore album. It sort of took everything that I disliked on their previous album and improved upon it massively. Definitely give this a listen if you don't mind loud sounds here and there. Okay, number 8, The Weeknd with After Hours. Sort of a similar situation than with Clipping, in it that I didn't really like anything from The Weeknd up until the singles for this album. And yeah, this thing is great. This is fantastic. It's a narratively driven album, which is really great to see. It works. It is a synth wave, synth pop sound, structured well, great songs. great lyrics, all of that just combines into a good fucking album. Number 7, I've got Joel Ortiz and King Crooked with their album H-A-R-D, Hard. This thing goes hard. It's a punchline fest. It's funny, it's deep, it offers so much for being like around the 25 minutes of length. And it was just very pleasing to find this old Slaughterhouse member duo making such a fun banger album with a lot of great lyrical showcases. For number 6, I got Run the Jewels with RTJ4. They're back for a 4th part to their Run the Jewels self-titled series. They go over a lot of issues in our world. They go braggadocious. They use the synergy between LP and Killer Mike and just put these great songs on this great production. And I love this thing from front to back. I think it's a great album. And now going into the top 5, I would like to remove my cool badge. I would like to throw myself out there by saying that my 5th favorite album of 2020 was Eminem's Music to Be Murdered By. I know, it's very uncool of me to not hate this thing because Eminem old. Okay, just being serious. I think this is finally, again, an album from Eminem that isn't either sloppy or no, it wasn't sloppy, I'm actually a good rapper. I think he was finally just in the zone again to make good music, make fun tracks, and dude, I'm a sucker for corny punchlines. If you just throw corny punchlines at me all day, your album's a 10. On this album, he's really showcasing the fact that he's lyrically incredibly talented. Personally, I do like words, I like wordplay, I like just lyrical things, especially in music, so this album sort of does it, and it carried with me throughout the year, and that is why it is my number 5. It is time for my number 4 album of 2020, and that goes to another Finnish album, Drama Karvietta by Bam. I'm not gonna go too much into detail about this album, mainly because most of the people watching this will not understand a word on this album. But I think overall, sound-wise, lyric-wise, really fucking great. I'm still not like really figuring out whether there's an overarching storyline, whether a few songs link together, but there's definitely a connection within the album of some sort, and I'm also a sucker for that. So it was one of my most anticipated albums of the year, though I didn't know if it was actually going to release. Yeah, it's fantastic. Maybe even if you're not Finnish, and maybe if you don't speak Finnish, you don't understand Finnish, maybe you'll still enjoy 1 or 2 of these tracks. Oh my god. It's the top 3. The top 3 for this year was really difficult. Not in terms of what albums I'm gonna have in there, but what order they're gonna be in. Genuinely, I had no idea 2 weeks ago what would be number 1, what would be number 2, what would be number 3. But I'm pretty happy with what I've got going here. And 3rd place, bronze medal. Number 3, Charlie XCX with How I'm Feeling Now. It's crazy to think that this album was essentially a quarantine anthem that released in May. It's December and we're still fucked beyond belief, but it's an interesting reflection already on sort of what the mindset was at that time when you were just mainly frustrated with, being inside and all of that, when now there's just like all hell loose out there. Forgetting all of that real life bullshit, this album sounds amazing. It goes hard, it goes deep, it goes introspective. It's really just like a collection of great tracks that reflect the mindset of Charlie, how I'm feeling now. She was telling us how she was feeling then. I wonder if she's gonna make another album called How I'm Feeling Now, though that would be the same title. What am I talking about? This album is great. This is fantastic. I don't think it has a single bad track, barely a bad moment, and I think it's very deserving of the number 3 spot on my list here. Give this album a listen if you haven't. The second best album of 2020 is I Disagree by Poppy. Holy shit, this album is good. It's wild. It's It's all over the place. It's loud, it's cute, it's gonna kill you, and then it's gonna cuddle you. Poppy took a direction here that probably doesn't click with everyone. She's talking about getting her soul sucked out of her body, and then she says, chewy, chewy, yummy, yummy, yummy. So yeah, I fucking love this album. I love all of the tracks here. I think there's not a dull moment on it. It still sometimes just makes me chuckle listening to it. This is a great album right here, fellas and girls. Here we are, the number one spot. What is my album of the year 2020? Unlocked by Denzel Curry and Kenny Beats. Oh my god. Denzel Curry teams up with Kenny Beats and makes this thing. It's so good. I'm really struggling to talk about it. The tracks, they're complete bangers. There's just like flows, on punchlines, on voices, on sound effects, on what? Give me more. Yeah, so that's my album of the year right there. It's Unlocked by Denzel Curry and Kenny Beats. What the fuck? And that's that. That's my top 50 right there. A few honorable mentions. Grime MC by JME dropped November last year, but released on streaming June this year, so I didn't want to include it. Technically, it should have gone on my list last year, but I hadn't heard it yet, so that's a bummer. Also, the Kingdom Hearts OST collection that released last month, I think. Shout out to that thing. It's great, obviously. And yeah, I think that's that. This shitty year is coming to a close. And I remember saying at the end of my video last year that I hope I get some bangers in 2020. I hope I get some good albums. And I think all of these 50 were good. Some of them incredible. And I'm really just thankful for the musical content that we received this year. In the description, there's going to be a playlist of my favorite songs from these 50 albums, and also a list of every album that I listened to this year, from this year. If you think I didn't listen to your favorite album because it wasn't on here, there's a chance I did, and it sucks. Nah, I'm joking, but putting the tail end of the list together was way harder than the top. I'm just gonna shut up and get to eventually editing this video. It's gonna be Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, that's gonna be pretty soon. And hey, 2021, provide me with the bangers. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you, no idea when.